So I guess my question is, what are the inputs and outputs that led you to wanting to pick Trump over Biden? Like because that was something that I think you tweeted. So
yeah. Well, first of all, I do believe that Biden is not actually in charge. Like, I don't believe that he's actually running the show. I think that that it is either a council or someone else or whatever, and that's just not how our system works. Period. So if you can't do the job, you're out of a consideration immediately. So right off the bat, I don't think Joe Biden can do the job. I understand there are people that are going to have their objections to Trump. And to be honest with you, most likely I will agree with the vast majority of them. I'm not a Trump guy. I'm not a Trumper. I'm not a MAGA guy. I didn't vote for Donald Trump in 2020. I voted for Joe Jorgensen just because I wanted to be annoying.
I do want to kind of like bullet your points and then kind of respond to them from my perspective. So far, I basically have that Biden is a corpse and the country is being run by his cabinet more than it's being run by him. And you think that the president of the United States should be physically fit enough to at least pretend to do the job. I heard. I do think he has. You have to actually be fit enough. He is the guy that's going to decide what. Again, nuclear missiles are still a big thing for me. He's going to have to decide if a nuclear retaliation is in order. He has a strong 20 minutes when they give him his amphetamines. Okay.
See, this is unacceptable too, though. This is also
they give him his amphetamines and his blood thinners, so the amphetamines spike his blood rate, his heart rate, and the blood thinners like reduce his blood pressure. And then he has 20 minutes of just fire. But then after that 20 minutes, you got to wrap it up. You got to get him in the other room because he's gonna
at his best when he was 63. We can knock almost 20 years off of it, and he's still 60. So
that was point number one. What's point number two?
I also think that my criticisms of Donald Trump, with the criticisms that I mostly hear, tend to be about the laws that he has broken, or the laws that he has been accused of breaking, or whatever. And I personally, that doesn't matter to me, because if he wasn't Donald Trump, none of these things would be happening. There would be no prosecution. There would be no, because I mean, look, anytime a government official breaks the law, if they are in favor of the government, if they are in the good graces of the actual government, they just change the law. And that's what they did with Barack Obama when he shot missiles at kids, at Americans, without due process. That's what they did with Hillary Clinton, with the whole stuff about her
email
server stuff. Joe Biden has top secret documents in his garage. Mike Pence has top secret documents. These things don't matter to anyone except for Donald Trump. So there's no validity to say, oh, he broke all these laws. No, he didn't. Or if he did, that's not actually a reason that anyone cares about. You're only saying that because he's Donald Trump and he is persona non grata. People will talk about January 6th, and I can say, look, there's criticism to be had that he didn't get on Twitter right the fuck away and say, knock it off, right? He should have. But he was there saying, look, do things peacefully. He was there talking about, we should do this peacefully. He was saying that all the time. So that to me is also a basically a non-issue. The most reason that I vote for Donald Trump, though, is I believe that the left has taken a significant amount of power in the government, and you will not get them out with a Democrat in charge. There is you can find the Twitter account. I believe it's Dear White Staffers, and it's actually people that are on staff involved in legislation, involved in writing legislation, and they're full of fucking communists. And that is people that are actually in government. There are a lot of very far leftists that are not elected, but are in the bureaucracy. And the only way to get rid of them, you're not going to get rid of them with a Democrat president, because they're going to be protected by the Democrat Party. The only way to get rid of them is to have someone that is not ideologically aligned with them and doesn't rely on them for their votes. Now, whether or not you like Donald Trump, I don't care. And it's not that I like Donald Trump. It's that Donald Trump is the option that doesn't make things worse.
Okay. So doesn't make things worse. I'm going to repeat that back to you almost, and then not running. And then I'm just going to take two notes, and I'm going to give you kind of my bullet points in reverse.
Sure.
So Biden is not actually running the country. It's his counselors. So for me, I understand that there's like a concern about lefties having infiltrated the upper echelons of government. But for me, that's almost like a selling point. Reason being, I have my criticisms of Donald Trump's and Biden's age and competence and their ability to stay lucid. And so I would almost rather like have them hand a Werther's original to Biden, have him sit in the rocking chair in the fucking corner, and then like the adults make the decisions in the room. Because the truth is that while lefties, I'm sure, have infiltrated a healthy chunk of the government, I still think that there's competent people up at the top. For instance, General James Mattis, you might not like him personally, but for me, like, I know his history extending back. So as a result, like, that's the kind of person that I would trust. You're smirking. I'll love to hear your smirking response in a second.
I like Mattis. I like Mattis. When you said general, the first thing I thought was Miley, and then I was like, not Miley. But then you said Mattis.
No.
Mattis is a very different guy from Miley. Because it's my estimation that Miley should be in prison because he asked Nancy Pelosi, or it's my estimation that Nancy Pelosi should be in prison because she asked Miley if he would wrap up Donald Trump. She literally asked for a military coup on January 6th. She asked for this. So
yeah.
Anyways,
so yeah, and obviously the use of, and actually I'll write that down as well because that's going to be another point. 82nd Airborne. Okay. So you might know where I'm going with that. I do. Yeah. So the laws that Trump has broken are not things that affect the competence of his position or the ability of him to do the job. And when it comes to other institutionalists, they have committed similar crimes and they are not being prosecuted for them.
Or worse.
Yeah. And I, relatively speaking, agree with this. So for instance, like, I think with Crossfire Hurricane, if Donald Trump was a traditional, normal electoral candidate who had been vetted by the institution, that investigation would have been either not launched at all, or it would have been launched a lot more softly, and it would have been done a lot more by the book and with less antagonism, to the point that, with cops, you can either find crime and then prosecute the crime that you find, or you can go looking for crime. And when you go looking for crime, the truth is that oftentimes you're going to find it. Yeah. So yeah. So
oh, and one more thing. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I believe that when the Hunter Biden laptop story came out and the 51 people that are members of the intel community put their stamp on it, I believe that that's the federal government putting its thumb on the actual scale. The federal government is not supposed to have an opinion. The federal government is supposed to listen to the will of the American people. And when the federal government hides information and then lies about it, because the people that are in the intel community, they don't go away. Just because they're retired doesn't mean they're no longer in the intel community. They still have those clearances. They still have those friends. They still make the same phone calls. If they put their stamp on it and saying this is probably Russian collusion, what they're doing is they are putting their thumb on the scale of the election, and that is something that is not only offensive to our system, it is illegal, and they should all lose their clearances, and we should prosecute them.
Okay. We're not on the same page, but we're shockingly close. So let's continue. Okay. So January 6th, you felt like Trump should have been more aggressive, but realistically, like, what happened. So it's not as big of a deal for you. The left has taken hegemonic power. So Biden, I wrote this, you didn't say this. Sure. Biden is making peace with Pete Buttigieg's dad's understudies. So yes. Pete Buttigieg's the kids who studied him in college, they are now staffers, and they are influencing the ways that things are done. The Republicans are largely anti-communist, so they wouldn't tolerate that kind of shit, whereas liberals and Democrats tolerate that kind of shit. So even if they themselves, the representatives, are not hardcore leftists, there's under people who are trying to push a definitely a lefty, if not a leftist agenda. Yeah. And then you said that he's the option that doesn't make things worse. So
yeah, I think that's my stance on that.
Yeah. So my rebuttals. So Biden is not running the show. I agree. It's the deep state. The deep
state's just a bureaucracy. That's not like some scary thing. Like, people get all worked up about the deep state, and it's like, look.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because I had this conversation with Destiny. He's like, well, you just think that the government is just this big, conspiracy theory. And I'm like, no. What I'm saying is that there's unelected technocratic officials who do the same job for 20 or 30 years. They might be vaguely Democrat or vaguely Republican, but they're more institutionalist than they are anything else. So if a president or a Senate or a Congress or whatever, if they change hands, all that's going to happen is a slight shift in priority, not a complete turn. And as an example, or the analogy that I used is the United States and its bureaucracy is effectively an oil tanker, and Donald Trump was trying to drive it like a speedboat. He was like, go in that fucking direction. And the people were like, that's a bad idea. And he's like, no. And they're like, and then they just like, they turned it like a little bit, because they didn't want to flip the bitch. But anyways.
I love your description because I totally agree.
Yeah. So when it comes to Trump, you mentioned that Pelosi is an asshole who asked Milley in order to overthrow or secure Donald Trump because of what was happening on January 6th. I think that when it comes to populists who don't care, you and I care about the Republic, or at least I think we do. I don't think Donald Trump cares about the Republic. I think that if you look at what happened since the electoral loss, there were people who were around him who were saying like, hey man, we're looking for the fraud. We're looking for the abuse. We're not finding what you think is there. As a result, we think you just need to concede. And he's like, nah, fuck that. And he kept listening to like the 5 or 6 people who were just jerking him off over and over and over again. And that to me, people will try to, when they debate me on this, they'll try to say, well, maybe he knew and he's lying, but maybe he just didn't know and he was acting in good faith. And for me, it ultimately doesn't matter because you are the commander in chief. You are the person who has to make competent decisions. You have to know who to trust. So if you're being backstabbed by your cabinet the entire time that you're in office, you're not able to effectively get your agenda done. And then on top of that, when you finally lose the election, you're either delusional and you're lying to yourself or you're lying to everyone around you. For me, that's disqualifying. Then one of the things that we mentioned was the Milley and the ordering of the troops. During the Summer of Love, Donald Trump was considering ordering the 82nd Airborne into the field in order to quash riots. And I think it's because the Marine Corps actually has an asterisk where they say and as directed by the commander in chief. And so the Marine Corps can actually deploy without congressional authorization. I think the 82nd Airborne has something similar where they have tell me.
I just don't think that I don't think the airborne can deploy into the United States. I think that they can't use the military.
But that instinct. Well, no. You just said what I believe, which is federal troops. If you want to deploy federal troops on the border, I'm down for it all day because the traditional role of the military is to secure the border. But if you're talking about using the military in order to secure American streets, there better be an actual fucking civil war with we imported the entire Middle East and North Africa and now we have 10,000 jihadists running on American streets. Or we have Chi-Coms or something.
The fact of the matter is that the police departments and sheriff departments are as equipped as they need to be to handle any kind of riots, anything short of anything short of squads bounding up a street, right? Covering fire, bounding. Your average riot cops can take care of it. So it was never a situation where Donald Trump needed that. And I honestly, my perspective on that is he's just running his face because that's what he does. So, but go ahead.
Okay. My uncomfortableness though, or my whatever you want to call it, I'm losing my words because we've been going for a while. But my uncomfortability with that situation is the fact that I think he's a populist. I think he's a demagogue. I think he appeals to the masses. And while I love Rome, I really do. I love the Caesars and Marcus Aurelius and gladiators, and Russell Crowe was fantastic in that movie. So anyways, I love Rome and I love Roman history. But when you look at republics that fall to monarchies or empires, it's almost exclusively because a popular commander-in-chief of the armed forces ordered his troops into the field on domestic grounds. So the fact that was even contemplated makes me wildly uncomfortable, freakishly uncomfortable. Although obviously Biden talking about F-15s pisses me off as well. Then when it comes to Ukraine, The reason why there's a war in Ukraine is because I think we're trying to attract Ukraine into our orbit, and they are in Russia's backyard, and Russia will not tolerate that shit. That's why they took Crimea. That's why they took Donetsk. That's why they took Luhansk. But
well, I think that they took the most strategic places in there. After the strategic places and the rest of Ukraine, they might let go because it's not as strategic for them. But anyways, go ahead.
No, I agree with you completely. But with the Ukrainians, they did not need to fight, and yet they have for the past several years. They seem to want to join NATO. They seem to want to join the EU. They seem to want to become Western. And the way that, if there were people who were hearing me saying this and they're skeptical of it, the evidence that I bring to you is that Western Iraq, when ISIS rolled through with soft shell trucks, fell within a matter of weeks. Afghanistan, after a decade of military expenditure and training, fell within 11 days. Ukraine is still fighting. I don't know what, 2 or 3 years fucking later in a hot war. Like that shows me that there's people on the ground who want to come our way. So if they want to come our way, I want a president who's going to encourage them and allow them and support them. Because as a former military member, I basically know that if we're not sending weapons, if we're not sending ammo, if we're not sending food, if we're not sending cash, what that does is it affects the grunts, and then the grunts get killed. So if the infantry are fighting for, I'll shut up in a second, I promise. I just love to rant. If the infantry are fighting for what I view as a noble cause, and then I have 2 presidents, and one of them is as likely to fuck them over as he is to take a piss in the morning, and the other one is a deep state military industrial complex shill, I would rather go with the shill.
So my only input on that is they're running out of Ukrainians. Like, you got 50 and 60-year-old guys, and I watch a lot of combat footage. I watch the Funker 530 channel and a lot of other Telegram stuff.
I'm boys with I don't want to say boys, that's overselling it. I'm mutuals and have friendly DMs with Robbie from the Funker team, and Robbie is a great guy. So you brought up the laptop and the Intel people. So I have been wildly frustrated by this for years, and I've been pulling fucking teeth with the likes of Destiny, Josiah, known as Ruminate, all that kind of stuff when it comes to Hunter Biden things. And you can say what you want about the Trump family or whatever. Investigate them all as far as I'm fucking concerned. But when you have the son of the vice president going overseas, getting money from people in order to invest in investment firms, not reporting the taxes, funneling the money back to family members, and then you have the people like the IRS agents, the people who are responsible for the investigation, basically saying, we're being stonewalled here, 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 and here. This is not normal for a fucking investigation. The state attorney's office is playing fucking footsie with the defense, and they're trying to get him the sweetheart deal the entire time. And then the only reason why I think, now this is just an opinion, and opinions are like assholes, but I think the only reason why Hunter has caught a felony for the gun charges, and we'll see what happens with the tax charges, because the tax charges are way more important to me than the gun charges, is only because of the IRS whistleblowers. I think if the IRS whistleblowers hadn't piped the fuck up, then the state would have renegotiated a sweetheart deal that the judge would have approved of, and it would have already been done. I think it only fell apart because of the whistleblowers.
Yep, I agree completely. And to your point about all of the evidence and stuff like that, like, I appreciate that you acknowledge this stuff and still say, you know what, to me, it doesn't matter. And I can respect that, totally respect that, because I know that I'm making.
Oh, it does matter.
what I mean is,
the Hunter shit matters.
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
Big enough to make you change your opinion about Donald Trump or who you'll vote for.
Well, I'll tell you this story. So there's actually 2 things that I want to say to you. And by the way, I don't expect to change your mind. I just kind of want to put it out there for why I think the way that I think. So one, Donald Trump did a deal with Harrah's in the 1980s for the Taj Mahal in Atlantic City. I think that's correct. If I'm wrong, somebody can correct me. But he signed a deal with them where he was supposed to build the parking garage, and Harrah's was responsible for the main building. And what happened was, after the casino opened, the parking garage wasn't complete, and Trump kept on stalling the construction over and over and over again. And Harrah's got so fucking pissed off. They were bleeding money. They didn't have enough customers. And so as a result, they pulled out of the deal. Well, literally within the month, the parking garage was built, and Donald Trump became the sole owner of the Taj Mahal. And as a result, started raking in millions, if not, billions of dollars. So you're smiling and smirking. For me, that tells me that you're a fucking liar, and you're willing to fuck over your business partners in order to go ahead. So get ahead. And so that adds up to all the other shit. Now, the second thing is, I really like James Mattis a lot. he basically said that Donald Trump was a mercurial, a bipolar toddler that everybody else had to rein in. And so as a result, I trust James Mattis over everybody else who I even talked to in the Twitch and YouTube politics space. Finally, there's this analogy or story or whatever that I talk about all the time. If you wake up and you bump into an asshole, you know, it happens. If you wake up and you bump into two assholes, it's a bad day. If you wake up and everyone's a fucking asshole, you're the asshole. Yeah. So when it comes to Donald Trump, he has this close-knit group of sycophants who all love him and thinks he's the best thing since fucking sliced bread and all that kind of shit. But then the people who break off from his orbit are like, yeah, he's the most insufferable, stupid, retarded sack of shit I've ever had the displeasure of fucking working with. I hope he dies in a fucking fire. And after that happens like 12, 15, 20, 30, 100 times, I just have to assume that they're right. So that's another factor in my calculus.